So one of the things that you'll see tonight is we'll have some conversations around this area, around the people and culture and what maybe the future of this is. But you're also going to get to see a chance to feel what Speakers Institute Corporate's all about and see some of our curriculum and how that supports the future of leading people and culture. My name is Craig Johns. I'm the CEO and Managing Partner of Speakers Institute Corporate. And at Speakers Institute Corporate, we inspire great leaders to solve ineffective communication and decision-making through well-being, leadership, client centricity, communication, and also organizational design solutions. We work with small, medium enterprises right through to Fortune 100 companies around the globe. We have a team based in 5 different countries, and we love a real diverse approach to the way that we facilitate, the way that we speak, and the way that we coach. And some of the things that we really found interesting over the last 2 years is that we wanted to disrupt the way that corporate training was done. Rather than having one person up the front and 20 people in the room training, we decided to take in a team of 3 facilitators and a program manager and a tech person and look to see how we could make it a more personalized, interactive, and even micro-learning style of training. And it has really shifted the way that people think around how we can do corporate training, why it's so important to be personalized, to spend more time practicing than listening, and to be really connected. The future of leading people and culture is something that is on a lot of people's minds. The way we have been looking at people and culture has shifted a lot over the last 2 years. And for those who aren't ready, it's going to shift even more the next 2 years. We have only just begun. Don't let that frighten you, but be ready for it and be open to it. And that's the beauty right now, is that it's been disrupted so much. We have so much opportunity to look at how we can shape the way corporates are led, the way that we work together, how we want to work. You know, we've heard the terms hybrid and remote working, flexible working. But I want you to think of it even a little bit different to that. Because what are people looking for? They're looking for more happiness. They're looking for freedom. They're looking for a purpose, in many cases, for their own self. Or how do I connect to what is our business purpose? I don't really know. But it goes beyond that. Do they want to be in team environments and collaboration? If you actually look at the most successful companies or individuals in the world, very rarely is it one person by themselves. It is generally a collaboration. Even an athlete is collaborating with a team to produce great results. But the most important thing that people are looking for right now is a sense of belonging. How do I belong? How can you create that as leaders to ensure that people feel cared for, feel heard, feel connected, feel like their voice really matters? And what is it enjoyable about how we do things together? I think that's such an important thing to remember. So I want you to think about flexible boundaries. Not flexible working, flexible boundaries. At the moment, the world has become very employee-centric. I mean, we've all seen it. Right now, it's all about the employee. I want more benefits. I want more money. I want to work from here. I want to do this. I want this. And I suppose the power has shifted. If we think about for centuries and centuries and centuries, it was very business-centric. The last 10 years, it's been a lot more client and human-centric. And now the bubble is burst and it's now about employee centricity. It can't last. The ecosystem in businesses will fail. But how is it going to right itself? How do we lead people through that to ensure that there's a really great balance between what we have in business-centric, client-centric, human-centric, and employee centricity? How do we balance that? Tonight, we're not going to solve that problem, but I want you to be aware of that. Because as new challenges come into play, inflation going up, a little bit more fear in some parts of the world, the opportunity to come back to work for some people has been a little bit restrained. It costs more now to drive my car. It costs more to drink coffee. Believe coffee prices are going up. So there's a whole new challenges that we need to be aware of as we try and balance the centricity that's going on. But at the center of this, in everything that we do, is communication. Communication is the heart and soul of your companies, of your leadership, of well-being, of your clients, the absolute center of it. So as you go through this process, as we look at how do we lead in these spaces, the communication aspect has to be number one. What conversations are we opening? Are people feeling heard? Are we asking the right questions? Are we listening effectively? How can we ensure that the problems we think we are solving are actually the real problems? How can we go deeper with that questioning and listening to ensure that we actually get the right answers from the people rather than the answers they think you want to hear? We have a great opportunity to think about how we lead people and culture in the future. And it all starts with one thing: the gravity of your leadership. Does your leadership have a gravitational pull, or does it have a gravitational push? Think about the other leaders that are around you. What are you sensing? What are you seeing? Is the way that you're leading or leading as a group, is that bringing people in, or are we still pushing them away in some aspects? How can we bring them in? How can we create that sense of belonging, that guiding belief of who we are as a leader to ensure that the gravity is there to make sure that we can do amazing things in this world and people feel valued in doing it? When we look at the gravity of leadership, I want you to think about the importance of still having that relentless pursuit of excellence. Now, sometimes people push away on that. Oh, excellence, we're relentless at something, but it's so important. We must have a relentless aspect to the way we lead. We must be relentless in the way that we are focused on something, that we are ensuring that we are guiding people in that right direction. We need to make sure that everything we do is heading in that direction that will take people inside your organization to grow, to evolve, but also to change the shape of your industry, the clients you're working with. But we have to be careful that we don't go beyond relentless to a point of being ruthless or even reckless. How can we be relentless in the pursuit of excellence without being ruthless or reckless? Hands up. Who loves tennis? A few tennis fans in the room? Does anyone know, for those who aren't fans, you know who Roger Federer is? Okay, very good. Okay, so let's look at tennis example here. Okay, Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal, and we look at Novak Djokovic. Up until the Aussie Open this year, all three had 20 Grand Slam titles. Amazing era of men's tennis. Obviously now Nadal has he's got one step above the rest. But if you think about it, all of them are extremely relentless in their pursuit of excellence. They will do everything they need to ensure high performance to achieve that success. But only Roger Federer stays in relentless. He's relentless in the way that he ensures that he performs so he can be in a position to win, but he also ensures he has the recovery and the time for his charities and the time for his family and his beautiful children, the time for media. So does Nadal. He's very relentless in his pursuit. He's also very ruthless. He's ruthless in a way that he will do everything in his own mind to ensure that he's ready. So he will maximize the time to in between points, and he'll do his little routine, which in some ways is really annoying for the other tennis players. It affects them. But he's not reckless. If we look at Djokovic, for instance, he's relentless. He's probably one of the most high-performing athletes you ever see in the way he has a team with him, his recovery strategies to ensure he's in peak shape. He's ruthless in a way that, for him, he is taking no prisoners as he goes through to do it. But he's also reckless. For him coming here, it was about him wanting to play. He did not care the consequences of other people, of how that might affect the world or might affect other people if he had COVID. Did he have to have the vaccination? And I'm not going to say he should or shouldn't, but his choice then was reckless. If we move now into corporate space and we think about leaders, who knows Ingenui? Okay, Ingenui, former CEO of PepsiCo, is now on the board of Amazon. Amazing leader. She is relentless in her pursuit of ensuring she has an amazing company that delivers great value around the world. But she's also, she's not ruthless or reckless. She even spends time making sure that she used to go out and meet every one of the executives' parents and say thank you for producing an amazing child who is doing incredible things in the world. But then you get someone like Steve Jobs at Apple, extremely relentless, very ruthless in the way that he did his business. And if you go back enough, he was very reckless as well. But a lot of the time, near the end, he was in relentless and ruthless. Now we look at Elon Musk. He's all three. His teenage kids don't talk to him. He's in his third marriage. Most of his staff don't really like him, but they enjoy working with him, but they don't really like him. So if we look at what that actually means, if we are relentless, it's about that non-stop commitment to a cause, to a vision, to a future. If we look at being ruthless, it's that taking no prisoners. And if we go reckless, we are careless of the consequences. How can you be relentless without being ruthless or reckless so that your gravity of leadership is a gravitational pull, not a gravitational push? When you start with leading with people and culture, you need to create a gravitational pull before you can then go deeper into it. We are now going to take you through a journey tonight as we go through a number of different speakers and different panels. But what's really important to kick us off when it comes to leading the future of people and culture is we first have to paint a picture. For people to come along with you for change, they first have to see it. And to kick us off with our first session, we have an amazing communication coach, an expert in the field of business storytelling. And to show you how you can paint a picture of the future of leading people and culture, please welcome Mr. Warren Tate.
The greatest leaders of countries, the greatest leaders of businesses, and the greatest leaders of people just also happen to be the greatest communicators, the greatest presenters, and the greatest storytellers. The great news is that this skill set of communication and presentation skills, and more importantly of storytelling, is a learnt skill. I wasn't born like this, thank God, my mother said. But it was 10 years ago, on the 24th of June. Now, I want you all to remember that date, please, because it happens to be my birthday. Write it down, it's coming up. I look forward to the presents. It was my very first keynote presentation. I was the CEO of a Bayside real estate franchise group, of which I had tripled its size. I was starting to get noticed as a thought leader in my industry. I was implementing new tech strategies, marketing strategies, and people were starting to notice. And it was at that time I received a phone call from Darren, a CEO of another organisation of a similar size. He said, "Tatey," I said, "Daz, how are you?" He said, "Mate, we've got a conference coming up for our franchisees, and I'd like you to speak in front of our 29 franchisees. It's going to be on the Gold Coast." I said, "I'm there." He said, "We'll fly you up, we'll get a driver for you, and we'll pay you $3,000. I said, "I'm in." Oh, by the way, it's on the 24th of June. I got the phone, I thought, how good's this? My very first speaking engagement happens to be on my birthday, and they're going to pay me handsomely for it. So I prepared a few slides, put a slide deck together, started to prepare my presentation. I was putting together some pretty good stuff. I mean, I went through it a few times. I thought, this is good. I like this content. I mean, of course I would. I've been doing this for the last 3 years. I know this stuff. So I flew up to the Gold Coast. I went up in an elevator at this 5-star resort and walked through these doors of a penthouse apartment. I thought, these guys know how to run a conference. So there was 29 franchisees sitting there in theatre style in front of me. All I could see was the blue sky and the ocean behind. It was fabulous. I got a great introduction. I started my presentation. I was getting nothing. God, you're ungrateful. So I kept going and I kept putting more energy in. I was getting nothing. Oh shit. So I started getting nervous. So I started to speak quicker. And then I ran out of material. Looked at the clock. 35 minutes ago of a 90-minute presentation. I thought, oh shit. And you know those speakers when they're on stage and you see that oh shit moment because you can see it in their face. So for the next 15 minutes, I continued to waffle. And about 15 minutes ago, I said, I'm done. I said, thank you very much. And everybody sort of looked at each other, then they've looked at me, and I've got this from about 3 or 4 people in the room. I felt sick. Darren saw me to the doors. He said, thanks, Tatey. It wasn't quite what I was hoping for, but I suppose it was good enough. Thanks, mate. Popped the check in my top pocket, and I walked out. I walked out of there, and I thought, oh my God, what have I done? For 3 years, I've built up my reputation as a thought leader in the industry. I've made big changes to an organisation. I'm starting to be seen, and I've just ruined it in one presentation. People are going to talk. I felt sick, and I felt embarrassed. On the flight back from Melbourne, I decided I was never, ever, 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 ever going to do that again, and I was going to upgrade this skill. I was going to pursue the best of the best in the world to master this skill set of being able to present and talk in front of everybody. So I went to courses. I sought out the best in the world, and I continued to master my craft. To this day, I still do this. But what I discovered was that the art of storytelling was the #1 secret, the key, the magic bullet to every single presentation. Business stories is a leadership tool. Telling stories in business presentations has the power to influence the entire audience. Business story becomes your strategic weapon in every single presentation. Now, this isn't new. I'm sure you've all thought, well, there's plenty of people that have been telling business stories for quite some time. Exactly, there has been. Elon Musk has already been mentioned. Indra Nooyi already been mentioned, CEO of PepsiCo. And of course, the great late Steve Jobs, one of the best at telling stories. In fact, there's a whole book on his ability to tell stories. Stories have the ability to influence people beyond belief. It has the power to transform them. There is magic in every single story. But what I've discovered over the years in working with Fortune 500 companies around the world, prop tech startups, in fact, I was online only this morning to a company in the US discussing their pitch from stage for some VC funding. What I discovered that many of these people out here in the world of the executives, the business world, believe that they're telling stories. They believe to this day. They through and through. I'm telling stories every single time. Absolutely, I am, Warren. And then I get them to present. And they're presenting case studies, not stories. Case studies are research and data around individual cases that they present as part of their evidence to justify what they're doing. They're not stories. Stories about people, where we have a connection with people. Stories is where we connect with individuals, not with companies, brands, or not with case studies or numbers. It's fascinating when you really uncover it and when you drill deep down, the case studies aren't stories. The people say, so Warren, why are they so important? Why are stories that important? How do they work? Well, it's quite simple if you study it like I do. There is a study in neuroscience where they've actually monitored brain patterns of the storyteller and the story listener. And what happens when you tell a compelling story is that the same parts of the brain light up at exactly the same moment as in the listener. Exactly the same time. You're communicating at a whole other level that you never thought was possible. It's called neurocoupling, and it's been proven in neuroscience. Is that Mum? Tell her I'll be late. But one of the biggest challenges we find is, but how do I include story? Again, really, are they that important? So, well, Harvard Business Review had a study where they took blood samples of the audience. Yes, that's right, we're taking blood samples of you shortly. Where they measured oxytocin levels, a hormone level in your bloodstream. It's the connection hormone, or better known as the love hormone. When people told an individual story about individuals, not a client, not a company, not a brand, about a person, an individual, where we have a connection with a character in a story, oxytocin levels increased as well. You've got the brain activated. You've got the hormones activated. If you're not telling stories, start telling stories now. Stories will change your life in every single presentation. But you know the most magical part about stories is they are memorable. A good story will never be forgotten. It was 3 years ago, I was at Sydney Airport, I was sitting in the lounge and I had a gentleman opposite me looking at me and I thought, that's strange. I continued on to my laptop, I looked up and he was looking at me again and he smiled. And he said, how are those Saints going? But one, how did you know about this? I said, sorry, do I know you? He's gone, no, probably not. But I attended a talk of yours 2 years ago up in Newcastle. And I still remember that you spread your dad's ashes over the ground at Moorabbin there for St Kilda. But I still remember the business story that he taught you. I thought, wow, they work. Stories work. So as leaders, as people within organisations, we take people on a journey. We take them on a venture. You want people to follow you as visionary leaders. The biggest challenge that you have is how are you going to get them to follow you? And you do a visualization story. And here it is. With a visualization story, you need to describe where are you currently, what's going on within your organisation, what's happening, and what are the challenges that you're facing. Then, what changes are you wanting them to implement? What are the drastic improvements that you're wanting to put forward to have them follow you on that journey? And then visualize and illustrate that future image of what that looks like. When you do this in a masterful way using individuals and characters, they will follow you and they will work with you to achieve that outcome. It's magic. So the biggest challenge that you face is you are looking to implement strategies and changes within your workplace. You have a great deal of knowledge. You have a great deal of ideas and visions for your organisations, but how are you going to implement them? You know, communication is the only thing that you can do that will have massive influence over every single staff member. And if you deliver a presentation with confidence, with certainty and with clarity, you watch the difference that it makes. So imagine that you hire a group of people who coach and train people around the world, a group of experts who master the craft of communication. You learn the art and craft and science behind story. You tell compelling stories that people are on the edge of their seats just leaning in and listening, and you think, wow, this is working. And then better still, at the end of that conversation, people come up to you, people that you've wanted to interact with and influence are now coming to you rather than you needing to find them. That's the power of story. You and your team are only one moment away and one perfectly practiced story away from making the breakthrough that you are looking for. Thank you.
So they can visualize the future is so important. And when we're visualizing, people want to know where they're going. They want to be able to feel it. But as we talk about how we respond to change in a flexible working world, we're now going to bring up a panel and we're going to look at how can we look at these different aspects of flexible working world and how can we effectively respond to that change. So I'm going to welcome up in a second Jessica Kiley, who is a program design manager and a lead, one of our top master facilitators for Speakers Institute Corporate. And she has a wealth of experience in communication, in working with people in an entrepreneurial space and facilitating. And I'm also going to bring up from Adelaide, Tanya Davies, who has worked a lot in governments, does a lot with the executive coaching and around the importance of mindset and leadership. So to talk on how we respond to change, please welcome both Tanya and Jessica and myself.
Thank you. Thank you, Craig. How are we going this evening? Yeah. Warren was amazing. I hope you're all starting to think of the stories you've got to tell as well. And both Craig and Tanya have incredible stories with their rich experience and professional experience. For those of you who don't know, Craig himself is a CEO of Speakers Institute Corporate, but with decades of global experience running organisations and teams around the globe, but also a high performer himself, being a world champion multiple times. So he knows what he's talking about. And Tanya is a hypnotherapist and working with executives around Australia as well, coaching them one-on-one through some of these massive changes that they've been through and being that support for those who are then actually working with the organisations. So I get an opportunity now to ask them a few questions about culture and what they're seeing and experiencing in that particular area. But if anything comes to mind as we're chatting, please put your hand up and ask them. We want to make sure it's of value for you coming here this evening with your time. So I like to start, Craig, with what actually is culture? What does that mean to you, that word?
It's a great question to kick it off. And for me, culture is around the behaviours, the beliefs, the actions that we take. And I suppose people hate to hear this, right? It's the way we do things around here. but it is. It is how you work together. It is what is our way of working with each other. It's our way of working with other people, and it's the way we create that sense of belonging.
And I guess, Tanya, that way of working has very much shifted.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't need to tell you that things have changed completely in the way we work. But I have to say, there's a different perspective to it. It's not just the physical proximity that we've got to each other. It's the complete mindset. Clearly, that's the area I work in. It's the mindset shift that everybody's had to have as well. Yes, people are looking for more of that balance in their lives. But the biggest complexity I've got right now with the executives that sit in my lovely chair is not just their own personal mindset challenges, but it's also how am I engaging the team to get them back in and genuinely connecting with each other now that they've found their new comfort zone. And let's face it, we're all quite comfortable in our tracksuit pants and Ugg boots under the desk. But at this point, as you said before, Craig, we do need to come back to that balance, that threefold balance there of the human connection, the business side of it. It needs to be incredibly more business-centric, but also your clients. At the end of the day, we're there for the clients, right? The employees have got the jobs because of the clients. Now, that's not to say that we can't have a very human and connected approach to where we're moving with this shift, but we all have to take a very different approach to what are the must-haves in this change. Not the nice-to-haves. It would be nice to be all back in the office and getting together again, but what are the must-haves that we need in this new environment?
And I think that speaks to, in terms of culture, collaboration and the conversations that are happening now. What sort of conversations are you hearing within the Fortune 500 companies around culture and the things they might be struggling with and solutions that they're looking for?
Yeah, I think there's some differences that are happening, and some of you will see this. You know, for those that have been in the organisation a long time, being in teams, it's easy for them to kind of hold that culture together. But what happens for those that are new, maybe those new graduates out of university who have spent the last 2 years of their first 2 years of their working life still living at home with mum and dad? They don't have any social experience. The actual social connections online are quite limited because team meetings have been reduced to 30 minutes. There's not that many social opportunities online. And you know what? People have actually forgotten that it's okay to pick up a phone and ring Andrea and say, "Hey, Andrea, how are you going?" without having to send her an email or text message and book into her schedule. We have to schedule now to even go and visit the neighbour. What happened to us? We've forgotten the simple thing that it's okay to actually, ad hoc, make a call, drop in, say hello to someone online, and have a conversation. We have forgotten about that. It's still there, but I think it's important to bring that back. So that's the big thing. Obviously, people have realised that they don't want to go back into the office. They don't like the commutes, etc., which are fairly normal. And when they try and bring them in for that cultural connection, people are so hesitant. They're just quite happy being at home. Like a lot of them are quite enjoying that space to themselves and not having to worry about someone else's problems that they hear at the water cooler.
It's an introvert's dream, right?
So they're seeing that aspect, but for some that are very old companies where there's a well-established, this is the way we've always done things, bureaucracy, very tight boundaries, they've found it really difficult to let go even though they had to, but now they're in a state of like, do we just let go of everything and let culture go where it needs to go, or do we need some boundaries to it? So that flexible boundaries that we talked about before, how important is that going to be? And I think if you want to head in a direction, you've still got to lead those boundaries and know when to call out on certain things. But make sure it actually means something. Why are you calling them out? Is it just because it's in the rules or because of something that's written? Or can you actually ensure that it's something like maybe on inclusive language? Calling out something that's actually important for the sense of belonging, and so we don't exclude people from the organisation. I think that's probably the bigger things that are coming through.
And then, Tanya, for executives who are trying to almost create and design this next culture in a way the fact that there is no role model and that they're not really sure what's happening next. If we all had a crystal ball, it would be amazing, but it doesn't exist. And therefore, everyone's making it up at the same time, in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
How is that being managed?
I think what an amazing opportunity. I mean, I'm gonna very badly quote Brené Brown right now, but in that place of vulnerability lies innovation. And if you're willing to lean into that space of vulnerability and create a safe place for people to fail fast, what a great time to actually really listen and allow people to truly be heard in the organisation and have a part in making that new evolved culture. I mean, I don't know about you, but I get kind of annoyed if I'm not heard. So do my kids. But at the same time, so if you actually think, if you step back a moment and say, what is it that is really holding back not just my employees, but even my leadership team from wanting to come back and connect in this new space and really dive deep on that? Yes, it's the logistics and it's saving money and everything that Craig's eloquently spoken about. But again, getting down to real base level, people do not want to see seen to be failing at things. So we're going to fall back to the old school, the things that we've always known. But that's not working in this environment. So it's time to throw out the rule book and it's time to lean into that sense of vulnerability.
Very good.
Got someone at the back. Craig, in terms of that, if even at the executive level, the CEO level, what impact does it have in terms of what they're role modelling and yet what they're expecting of the others within the organisation and that as a culture sort of maybe difference there? What are you seeing or hearing in that area?
Yeah, I mean, you think about your kids. Your kids will role model your behaviour. They will follow what you do, and adults are no different. And I think it's important as leaders that we ensure that if we're going to be creating a culture of something, that we're expecting something of our people, that we are the first ones to role model it. We don't ask someone else to do it. We don't just write the new culture and say it once and walk away. That we embed it into everything that we say, we write, our conversations, our connections, our behaviours, every single day. It's so, so important that we role model that. If you want to create something that can...
But what about when there's resistance from those executives? Because in some of the work we get to do with Speakers Institute Corporate, we are helping people to up-level their communication skills online across different organisations and geographics. And we let them know you need to turn the camera on, you need to look good, you need to present yourself well. Then the executives come in and introduce themselves, cameras all over the place, it's not on. So it's then how do the messaging they're getting there compared to what they're asking of their employees, that's a real disconnect. Yeah, how do we, I guess, help the executives to start to see that that's actually the impact that they're having? Because I imagine the L&D people in the room, you know what needs to be done and you want to role model it yourself, and sometimes the resistance is at that executive level. Yeah.
I think you just take the security card, grab their laptop and ask security to take them to the door, right? Look, you know, it is a challenge because people are so used to doing something, and I think we've got to have those conversations first and be open with them and say, look, you've agreed to this. This is what we're doing as a group, as a team. We've got to take it forward, but you've got to call it out. We have to be open and transparent. We can't just walk past it and let it go. And we see it all the time. You know, we have one company who keeps asking us to embed the behavior for them, and we're like, it's not going to work. It has to start from the CEO. The CEO then has to work with his team, and it has to then filter down. When it comes to cultural change, it has to start from the top. It cannot start from the bottom. It will only go so far, and then the resistance will be too high, and it will pitter back out, and people will walk away. It has to be led from the top.
I totally agree. I mean, and don't assume that you know why the leadership team aren't showing up. Lean in and ask them absolutely genuine, honest conversations about what's really going on, because you probably actually haven't quite nailed it.
Now, I'm sure Tanya and Craig here could keep going on talking about culture, and please go and chat with them about anything that might have sparked your interest there. But as you know, we do a lot of our programs around the area of communication and helping that area. And in order for us to learn a little bit about what Speakers Institute does there, Speakers Institute Corporate, Craig, I think you'd like to bring up our next presenter.
Yeah, so first of all, let's give Jessica and Tanya and myself a big round of applause for the conversation. So now for you at different times, if you're CEOs, you're going to be presenting to board or stakeholders around, your people and culture and maybe the strategy and what's coming up. Or if you're in HR or learning and development or people and culture space, then you're likely to then be presenting to the C-suite and maybe even presenting down to the employees in the organization and your team members. So to help you with that, we're going to share with you a structure that can help you position a change, help you position something for the future. So our next speaker originates from Brazil, is really effective in the world of sales, very, very clever young man, but he has a lot of maturity when it comes to how can we work with corporates to be able to help people make those changes. Please welcome from Melbourne, Pedro Estrella.
Thank you very much, Craig. And it was funny because coming here to a live event, I was very, very glad to stop worrying about the online side of things. Is my camera on? Is my microphone on? But I guess there was a little bit futile, wasn't it? So I want to ask you a question, right? As business professionals who are clearly relentless in your pursuit, otherwise you would be with your families tonight instead of here with your beautiful faces and us from Speakers Institute Corporate, have you as business professionals ever felt like you have an idea to share? Maybe you have some influence that can bring positive change to your business, to your company, maybe even to your family. But you're not quite sure how to position that to the people in your organization. You see, we found that by using the Authority Communication Framework, or what we call the ACF, you can be effective in communicating to every sort of human. Now, with the ACF, we've taught this to hundreds, if not thousands of people way more able than me, like Sam at the back, and maybe Craig as well. So we know that this formula works. And actually, I want to tell you a story, right? I remember a time when I was starting out in sales, as Craig mentioned, and I actually started out when I was 18 years old, knocking on doors, talking to people about solar panels, okay? So I would knock a door, people would answer. I had my little strategy where I would stand on the side, you don't want to be too confrontational. They would answer the door, and I would pitch them about buying solar panels. What I found is that most people that were doing the same thing I was doing, or doing any sort of influencing or persuading, they go straight to a solution. So imagine this, picture this for a second. Someone knocks on your door. I'm sure you've all got beautiful homes, right? You open the door and they go, "Hi, have you looked into solar?" I've never heard of a quicker way to get a door slammed in your face. You see, I was missing a key ingredient to actually being persuasive and influential. And once I learned the ACF and I implemented this strategy, I was able to then create a business, which is now set to do over $1 million this year in revenue. So what is the ACF? The ACF comes down to a few things. First is addressing the problem. Once I stopped being a product pusher or a solution pusher, and I actually addressed the problem that my audience had, I was able to connect. Next comes the solution. So you provide a problem, and then you bring in your solution and your idea. Next, we have the evidence to back up this solution. Then we have an example or a story. And then we have the detail. Now, what you'll notice is that when I came on stage here today, I actually used this structure to introduce it to you. Have you ever felt, or have you ever wondered, as influential business leaders, how to actually influence and persuade the people within your company, the people within your family or your business to actually go your way? You see, I have found that by using the authority communication framework, that's when we can truly be our most effective. You see, we've thought this framework, or our research shows that you want to bring in something analytical. Like we've taught this framework to thousands of people all over the world. And then you bring in your story or your example, where you're going to be able to connect with the audience on a deeper level. And then once you've done that, you bring in the detail, which may be a call to action of sorts, or you're breaking down, like I'm breaking down the ACF for you here today. So, for example, have you ever felt disconnected from the team within your company? Maybe you felt like in these flexible work environments that we have today due to COVID, you're not able to see and connect with your team as you were before. You see, we have found that by bringing in a sense of belonging to your team, you can truly band together and you can increase your business results. You see, Forbes actually found in 2019 that by having a sense of belonging in your business, it actually increased business performance by 56%. Now, imagine if in your business, everything flowed perfectly well. If the team was working in absolute harmony, and if everything was flowing so smoothly, there was no miscommunications, there was no errors, there was nothing to actually worry about. And I want to share with you today, I went too far ahead. That's something to keep in mind of when you're speaking on stage. Make sure you got the clicker right. And that's where we bring in the detail or the call to action. And that's why today we wanted to speak to you about the authority communication framework, but more than that, because you're all leaders in your industry. You're all relentless in the pursuit of greatness. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here tonight, would you? You're probably with your families or with your mom, right? Or you're probably with your kids at home. But instead, you're here. So I want to encourage you all to take the ACF with you, and whenever you need to be persuasive, whenever you need to influence, because you know the direction that your business needs to go in. You know, as business professionals, you have the expert authority. You have the credibility, right? This strategy, this framework, is just a tool for you to be able to use it in the most influential and persuasive way possible. Thank you.
Now, we've just gone through a structure of what you can say. And so it's important to know what to say, how to structure your content so that you can position a change or position something really, really effectively. The real key comes to how you say it. So talking about nonverbal communication and how you can use that effectively to lead people and culture through change in your organization, please welcome back to the stage, Jessica Kiley.
Thank you, Craig. All right, nonverbal communication is all about the language of the body. So right now, I would like all of your bodies to stand up because we need some energy. We've got to keep receiving. And I'd like you to turn around and find someone who you do not know and introduce yourself. Say, hey, who are you? What's something you just learned in the last 20 minutes? What's something you've just learned? All right, make sure each of you have had a chance to say hello. Very good. Take a seat. Take a seat. Now, Pedro took you through a really great structure on what to say. We find that a lot of the time when people are putting presentations together, whether it's for a keynote, training, a presentation, explaining, they're sometimes lost when it comes to what's the best structure. Pedro's giving you a really great one for that. But that's only a small percentage of communication, or getting communication right. What to say, just the words. There's this whole other part, many people say up to 70%, which is actually about how we say it, that can actually make the difference. So just think, when you met that lovely new person in the room just then, what impression did you get? Not just from the words they said, but also how they said it. Was there a smile? Or was there a seriousness on the face? Was there movement in the body? Or was there stillness in the body? Unconsciously, we are actually taking in that information and making up a judgment about what it means. But it goes two ways, of course. Now, often we see executives, leaders, trainers even, who they too easily slip into a default mode of communication. It's the way they've always done it. And actually, there's not many people around them that they have that have given them any feedback on how that's coming across. I can see some nods of heads in the room. We have to sit through meetings and things like that where the person speaking is actually really boring. The tone hasn't changed for the last 20 minutes. Or, even better online in the last 2 years, they're trying to inspire and get collaboration and all the cameras are off, including theirs. We've got no non-verbal communication happening there, in a way. The best way we can then inspire others to do it is to be doing it ourselves. And sometimes we're not even aware of our own non-verbals and the impact that they're having on others. And if we want to lead people, if we want to lead cultural change, we want to lead our families, we want to influence, the better we know ourselves, the better we can do that. And the only way to do that is to become aware of it. So I'm going to take us through 3 key areas of nonverbal communication. And I'd love for you to start seeing some of these you naturally do as a default and see if it's working for you or not. Because, hey, it could be really working. And then others you might be able to use that you're not utilising. Because communication is always about the listener, not you. What do they need in order for it to land, in order for it to inspire? Not what makes you comfortable sometimes. Sometimes we have to make it a little uncomfortable to make sure it really helps them to understand what you're wanting. So in terms of our nonverbals, today we're going to look at 2 buckets in a way. Now, of course, communication, particularly body language, is very nuanced. It is very contextual as well. But for the purpose of time today, we're going to look at a group of nonverbals that are considered to come across to the listener as more credible. And then a group of nonverbals, things that happen in our bodies, that will then make it feel a lot more approachable. And you'll start to notice already, even from our speakers, the differences and how it impacts you as a listener. What keeps you interested? What doesn't? So if we have a look at those, first with the face, a really great way to remember either side. The credible side is like a news reader. So think right now, people who you listen to speak or present, even in team meetings, executive updates, who is more like a news reader? And then on the other side, we have those who are more like the trainer, the corporate trainer, a lot more approachable. That's an easy way to remember the 2 sides. One is neither better than the other. We need both in our communication toolbox. So with the face and the newsreader, Do we blink more or do we blink less when we see a newsreader? Tell me. Less. Very good. And the smile is less too, isn't it? Because when we want to be credible, when there's moments when we want that groundedness, that trustworthiness to come through, we're going to smile less. We're going to blink less, just like a newsreader, because that comes across as trustworthy. But then there are moments when we need to create connection and engagement, and we need to make sure the smile is there, and we can blink a little bit more as well. Now with the blink less, don't worry, yes, you can literally train yourself to blink less. It is very tricky. But also if you notice in terms of the head, what is a head doing? Imagine even a movement of a head saying something to you. Less movement of the head feels more credible. More movement of the head feels like I'm going to get involved and listen to you. Kind of makes sense, but sometimes we don't realize what we're doing or not doing. We just move into a default. What about our body? What is our newsreader doing with the body? Stillness, exactly. Yes, can you imagine a newsreader like happily telling you that there's bombing happening in the Ukraine? Incongruence. And we know it. Instinctually, we know it. The best communicators start to make it conscious for themselves to start using it. So we have fewer gestures when we want to be credible. But if we're sitting with one of our teammates, our other team leaders, and we need to create connection, we're going to use more gestures. And if you don't, potentially they're going to think that you're a bit more standoff. So all in all, we're seeing a lot of a trend here, aren't we? We've got less of everything sitting on the newsreader side and more on the approachable side. Then what about our voice? As a trainer and a corporate trainer, what happens with their voice? A lot of variation, isn't it? I'm doing it right now. Exactly. Whereas in moments when you need to land your message, you're going to have the stillness, flatten the pitch, and very much finish down at the end. Many Australians have the tendency to finish up at the end of every sentence that they finish, like they're asking everyone for permission, and if they agree. We're laughing because we know people who do it, right? But have you told them? Ah, good on you. Too often we don't, and they don't realise the impact it's having. It just lowers their credibility straight away. And they may be the smartest, the most, expert in that area, and they don't realise that that is happening a lot at the end. Then we want to keep a slow rate as well. Who knows people when they speak, you've listened to them, and there's just like this constant talking that's coming out of them. We've got lots of nods of heads. Is that yourself or someone you know? We'll see. We want to slow down. Now, especially if you work in organisations where it is global. People are doing English as a second language. There's a lot of processing that's happening. We see this a lot in the organisations we work with. We work with people in India, Malaysia, Croatia, all sorts of places, and yet they're communicating in English. And it's the slow down part. Say less to then making your point. Give people time to really take it in and process what you've said. And you want to take that pause. Too often, we don't finish a sentence with a full stop. It just keeps going. And, so, then, and it just keeps going. Not the best in terms of communication. Communication is all about to make common. That's what the word comes from. We can't make a common understanding if we're constantly adding on top. Now, we're going to put this into practice right now, people. I want to see how good you are. This is a chance you can actually take out your phones in a moment, because the biggest thing about being a great leader is self-awareness. And not very often do you go and watch yourself speak and present, do you? You just do it. And you often then don't get feedback afterwards. It's what we love to do at Speakers Institute Corporate, is give feedback. So we're going to practice with these two sentences. With these two sentences, you're going to practice being highly credible, and you're going to practice being highly approachable. The two ends to get a feel for each side. Now, the reason why you're going to use your phone, because you're going to video yourself. You're going to turn it around. I know people are like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to watch it. Nobody else is going to watch it. You can post it on social media if you really want to. It is a practice in self-awareness, because after our session today, I want you to go back and watch it. And I want you to watch it with the sound off and have a look. And if you feel confident, you can show a few other people, or even watch back over some recordings of things of you speaking, and you'll start to see and hear these differences. So let's all just practice the two sentences together one time to get a bit of practice in. Are we ready? After 3. 1, 2, 3, go. Creativity is thinking new things. Innovation is doing. Great, excellent. Already can you feel a certain default in yourself? Some people just want to go, creativity is thinking new things. And others are just like, creativity is thinking new things. Innovation is right, you've already got a default you're probably going to get a sense of. So first time around, we're going to do highly credible and pretend we are a newsreader. Longer pauses. We go back. Oh no, it doesn't go back. Does it go back? Yes. Longer pauses. Flatten your tone. Finish down. Move less. Then we'll go across to approachable and you get to come alive. So everyone, take out your phones. Oh my God, they say. Who said to come along to this? You're going to make me do something. Whoa. So switch it on. Video only. Don't go checking all those messages now. Switch it on. Turn it around to you so that all you can see is you. Take a breath. The breath is one of the most important parts of communication. We don't have time today to go through that. Breath is important. Take a breath. Think of the newsreader. Go slow, less movement, flat and down. Press record. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, we'll press pause. We get to do that again. We didn't have the words right up there. Some people just knew it automatically. That's all right. But I'll put it back up here again for us all. There was our run through. Let's try that again, newsreaders. I heard some really good flat tones happening there. See if you can put a gesture in even. Creativity, but hold the gesture, is doing new things. 1, 2, 3, go. Creativity is doing new things. Good, I like it. Lots of up-and-coming newsreaders in here. Now, other side, one more time. We're going to do this. Come alive. I know it feels weird, doesn't it? That's okay. I'm pushing you one side to then feel the extreme, to then come back to what feels a little natural. But we need moments of this activity. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, well done. Give yourselves a round of applause. Excellent. I want to encourage you all to watch those back. Have that ability of the self-awareness, and it'll feel uncomfortable. But if we don't push ourselves, if we're relentless in the pursuit of excellence, it means being uncomfortable sometimes and watching ourselves back. It's been a pleasure to lightning fast do some non-verbals with you. I'll hand you back over to...
Yeah, look, great session, right? It's a challenge of being a little bit uncomfortable, bit of risk. Do you know that vulnerability requires courage? And courage equals risk, uncertainty, and also that ability to let go. Challenging, right? That's vulnerability. Requires uncertainty. Requires us to go a bit deeper. We're now going to look at different aspects of our culture and our people and our culture and the strategy. And so we're going to bring Jessica, who's going to come back up on stage. She's going to facilitate a session with our co-founder and myself. I'm going to bring up Sam in a second. Sam is the founder of Speakers Institute, which is the sister company of Speakers Institute Corporate, and co-founder of Speakers Institute Corporate. He is been a keynote speaker and facilitator for many, many years. He's written 11 books. 5 have been best international bestsellers. He has been on stages with the likes of Sir Richard Branson, Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, the Dalai Lama, and a number of different people around the world. Please welcome to the stage Jessica and Sam Cawthorn.
Yay, thank you.
And we're back.
Hey!
Now, I've actually known these two gentlemen for a while now, particularly Sam.
A long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
And I think I can also say I have taught them both.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah, absolutely have. Yep.
Which is pretty cool. So Sam, you do keynotes here in Australia and now globally. It's all back on again.
Yeah.
I'm very interested, and again, any questions that come, please put your hands up. I'm interested in the organisations that are having you come in now to speak to their people and inspire them. What are they asking for and why? But also, what are you noticing they're not asking for that they could be asking for?
So at the moment, what we know is the 3 of the hottest topics in the planet right now, and you can write this down if you like, yeah? The first one is still well-being. You know, there's still a lot of anxiety, fear, frustration out there and the like. So it's still a very hot topic, well-being, mental health, etc. The second one there is in and around the futuristic. You know, so anything at all when it does come to, when someone has an opinion on where the future is going in any industry. You know, business leaders across the world are quite uncertain about where the future is going. And so if you have an opinion on where the future is going, then that's also another really hot topic. And then the last one there is this whole area of, you know, back to work. You know, back in the office. You know, there's a real frustration out there, particularly with tech companies, finance companies, on actually getting them back inside the office. And so it's, I suppose that whole, like they're a little bit fearful that if we put too much pressure, then you're going to see the great resignation, you know, whole people are going to leave. Or, you know, and so there's a real mixture there. So for me personally, I still get a lot on resilience, well-being, mindset and the like. I've got a few topics in and around that. And then, yeah, in and around the futuristic and storytelling stuff and the like. That's my sort of sweet spot.
Great. And for you, Craig, with the executives, but also L&D people who you're hearing from on a daily basis now, what are they coming to you for and why?
I think a big part we're seeing in these companies, one, yes, we want to be able to present and communicate effectively, but we're seeing a lot in this space of how can we go beyond the transactional and solutional to the relationship selling. That whole importance of connecting with people and building that relationship over a long period of time has become top priority in the companies we're dealing with. We're seeing a lot of that. And one of the aspects, one aspect I really love was having some huge conversations at the moment around what does the Emerging Leaders Program look like? People have really realized, even though we've seen it for a long time, that there isn't sufficient programs inside organizations for people that have moved up and become, you know, specialists in the areas and are transitioning into people managers and then into leaders. You know, yes, we spend lots of time training to become a specialist, and then someone taps you on the shoulder and goes, by the way, tomorrow you're leading a team of 10. No training. So there's a huge demand at the moment for emerging leaders programs.
Great. Now, I know that you also both run dispersed teams globally yourselves. And that was pre-COVID, but then it went even further during COVID. How do you balance that employee centricity with the business objectives? When it's globally dispersed, you can't observe them as such.
It's a great question. I think, look, you know, for us, we actually started Speakers Institute Corporate as its own entity in 2020, July 2020. 3 months into COVID, we started a brand new business. And the essence of that business, one, we're very client-centric, huge. But when it came to the team of people, we have a lot of contractors. They all have their own businesses. They work for different people. And we wanted to bring them into something different. And it was all about a sense of belonging, having someone there to be able to connect with on a regular basis and create that, because they weren't getting that in their own space. Most of them are from a speaking coach or facilitating background. It's very lonely. You're a solopreneur. For those in the room, you will know what it's like. It's hard getting a response when you talk to the wall. And so that connection and sense of belonging took away any sense of we need to be employee-centric here. We want to be it became team centricity and client centricity connected together with human centricity. Probably the three of them came together really strong. And so, we really felt the power of that sense of belonging. And, I've met Tanya for the first time today. When we went to Singapore in February, we met all of them, or for me, I met all of them for the first time but one. I'm going to India next week to meet our team there. I've only met one before. But every time we've walked into that room, it's a big hug, and it feels like we have been knowing each other for not just the last sort of 6 months to 18 months. I feel like I've known them for my whole entire life. And it's because we create that space to not just have a meeting, or not just deliver a project, or not just do a piece of work. We create that space where they get to connect on a human level, find out a bit more about each other, understand each other. And I think that's been really crucial for us.
And just on that as well, Craig actually does that really well, actually meet people where they're at. And so, you've got some human beings that just simply want to get straight into the meeting. You've got other people that actually want a deeper connection and a nice fluffy conversation about how the weekend was or the like. But what we do know about, the three human fears in a way is, the fear of not being loved, the fear of not being good enough, and the fear of not belonging. So I actually think, to a certain extent, that actually is what a healthy workplace culture can bring, is that fear of, I belong here. I'm valued. I am good enough. And to a certain extent, people like my connection, that they love hanging out. Yeah. So if we can create that both, face to face, but particularly online, which is what you do really well, I think it's just the golden, it's the golden ticket.
I'm going to, sorry, Jessica, I'm going to keep this conversation going. And I really want to encourage you to think about this. For years, we've had the 6-month review, the 12-month review, which on their own are a complete waste of time. I'm going to be really honest. A complete waste of time. They are totally out of context. You might have a bit of information that might have been useful 12 months ago, or even 3 months ago, or yesterday, but not today. How can you create tight feedback loops of both things people are doing really well? How can you reward and recognize people for just the small things they do, but also be able to share with them and be open, but deliver it in a really effective way, opportunities to grow. Good. And that is something we get to do in our facilitating teams, for instance, is the 30 minutes afterwards is like probably a Navy SEALs debrief. And the team are not yes, they already know what they did well, but they want to hear what the perspective of everyone else is. They want to learn from each other. And because they're at a high level, they love it. So how can you create that in your environments every single day? That's my encouragement to you, my challenge, because that's where you get growth. It's not being the cheerleader. It's not talking to them until you have your performance review. It is how can you give that immediate feedback, so whether it's in a team, whether it's individual, so they know they feel valued and they know that when they do things well, but also what they can do to improve. Everyone wants to learn.
You can even have fun with that as well. In the gaming industry, they call it gamification. It's a 3-part. It's a challenge, reward, recognition. So you give people a challenge, they want to have that reward. But some people miss then that recognition piece. So that's why gaming industry, one of the fastest growing industries on the planet, is because, that we as human beings, we love that challenge, we love the reward, and it could be gems or whatever it is, but then we have to be recognised the next level and the like, and we can do that in a culture.
Now, I think we've got a question here.
Oh, I love
Please.
questions.
So you talked about post-COVID, you started a business, and you mentioned the impact that you've had around engaging with people remotely. Can you share with us some of the key things that you have implemented that have made the difference between being a virtual session and actually being a human engaging session that brings people along? So what did you do differently, or what did you learn over the last 2 years that makes that experience just as rewarding?
Okay. A couple of things. One, it comes down to how are you framed on the screen. Right? So literally, is it just your head? Is your face, can we see your eyes? Are you positioned? Like, for instance, every single time I'm on camera, you can see from my elbows up, so you can see gestures that are happening when I'm on camera. There's 1 inch from the top, my eyes are 1/3 down. I have the posture you see here right now and this calmness every single time. There is a consistency. It creates a safe space straight away because I'm calm and that energy comes across to other people. They can feel that. Then there's a little story. When Sam first asked me, he said, look, can you help out with our corporate part of the company? And I said, look, I'm working 70 to 80 hours a week right now, and I literally was. I was running 2 companies and CEO of Triathlon 3 days a week, and we were running a virtual online conference in June 2022. And so we put that on with about 8 weeks notice. And it was May, and I said, Sam, I've got 1 to 2 hours a week, because he had someone leaving. I can help out, 8 weeks' time, we'll talk. Had a couple of leads come in, 2 Fortune 100 companies. The emails I sent to them were 3 sentences. The first one was a human connection. I went and found out what was something they were doing and how could I give them recognition of it, or what was the connection that I'd seen and how could I make them feel good about something that we were connected with. The second one was give them some value. So shared some sort of value that could assist them in what they were doing. And then the third one was a call to action. 3 sentences. We landed both Fortune 100 companies in 2 weeks.
And we've still got them today.
3 sentences. And so I think that the important part of that is always starting with the human connection and making time for it. And so yes, I understand that there's the Zoom fatigue, but that's probably because people are taking on too many meetings, not the length of the meetings. And we need to think about how we use that time most effectively and why people need to belong to something first and feel a sense of connection and create that psychological safe space and permission before we go into talking about what we're talking in that meeting. Andrea, I'm sure you hope you don't mind. I met with Andrea today. We had a 1-hour conversation. We probably spent the first 15 minutes continuing to build our human connection in the relationship we have. That's the third time we have spoken. And I would say probably the next 30 minutes was me asking questions. I was very curious. And I just listened. And then we talked about what we could do together.
Does that answer your question, or were you also asking about the actual online training and how we do that to keep people engaged?
I think it answers part of the question, right? But there's some of the technical skills needed on an online training that I'd be interested as well.
We can share with you some information after this. Yeah, it's great. But thank you.
Good questions to ask, though. Yes. Are there any other questions from the floor? I have some more, but I'm happy to take some. Yes.
I've got a question. When you're thinking, you said the second was about adding value. Do you have like a go-to sort of like searchlight when you think, how am I going to add value now? A question you ask yourself, or, when you don't know what they need, but yet you're going to add value. Where do you pull the inspiration from?
A question. A question sometimes can add value because it allows them to think about something a bit deeper. So it doesn't always have to be, I'll give you a document, or I'll give you my book, or I'll give you my business card, or whatever like that. Like, the value can actually be purely just a reflection piece. I know you're working in this area. What do you think about this?
Good. What he says.
Any other questions? Amazing. Maybe just one last one of both of you. Pre-COVID, the idea that people are our greatest asset was very much the mantra. Do you still believe that to be true? Has that shifted? Sam?
Me first.
Yeah, you're going on this one.
Look, without a doubt, you know, throughout my entire life, everything rises and falls on leadership. And so a healthy leader is a healthy team. An unhealthy leader is an unhealthy team. So for me, people is always going to be, you know, that key part of any organisation. It's not going to function otherwise.
I'm going to agree and disagree to this one a little bit. I don't think we should ever be talking about our people as assets or as resources. I think we should be looking at how we change this to people are our greatest priority. People are our greatest partners. I think as organizations, if we think about people as assets or resources, it's transactional. We've got to move away from the transactional to the relationship. And we need to think about people as partners and the priorities in our business rather than assets or resources.
Thank you, Craig.
Very good.
Very good.
Thank Sam and Craig will wrap us up.
And you might as well stay here. So this is a big thank you. Thank you for the questions as well. So we're going to finish off with one of our last sections here, and we're going to keep Sam up on stage here. And we're going to dive into a little bit of resilience and well-being, as well as I'm going to take you to another level when it comes to story. Please welcome back to the stage, Mr. Sam Cawthorne.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, first and foremost, it is really, really great to see some familiar faces. Some of our students are actually here, and I just really wanted to thank you guys again for coming along. People that I haven't met before, really looking forward to also getting to know you as well. You know, I love this word decision, right? So this word decision actually comes from the Latin word decidere, you know, incision. Scission, as we know, means to cut. Yeah, and the word decide, yeah, the actual word side, suicide, pesticide, the word side means to kill. Look at this, the word decision or decide actually means to cut off and kill. And I actually believe that, in a way, the world lacks leaders that make decisions. Why? Because a lot of the time we love keeping our options open. In a way, we like sitting on the fence. And so my encouragement to you guys at the moment, particularly as we're navigating in this new season, whatever that might be, is actually, you know, is to make the right decisions as we go along. I want to actually share with you a story. And it was a pretty cool decision that I made. A few years ago, I won this award, Young Australian of the Year. They flew me from Tasmania, so I'm Tasmanian, yeah, flew up through to Canberra on Australia Day. And I'm about to meet the Australian Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, yeah? But I'm thinking to myself, what can I do in order for the Prime Minister to remember me? Because as you guys probably know, the Prime Minister probably meets hundreds of people every day, as if they remember everyone that they meet. So I had one of my prosthetic arms on, yeah? And I've got a whole heap of different prosthetic arms. I've got, you know, one for playing golf. I've even got a swimming arm. I've even got a bionic arm, and so it's the most advanced bionic arm in the world. I even program it with my iPhone 13. Seriously, it works via nerve endings and muscle as well. Actually, if you guys downloaded the app, you can control my hand. I've got 8 arms all up. How many arms do you have? So I'm about to meet the Australian Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, but I had my cosmetic arm on. So he didn't notice at all that I had a prosthetic arm. Glenn McGrath, Adam Gilchrist, Rove McManus, a few other guys were there, and I went up to the Prime Minister, and he sees me, comes over to me to say hello, but also to shake my hand. As he went to shake my hand, I detached my hand and it came off into his hand. And so, World's media came in, everyone was just cracking up laughing, and the Prime Minister's just standing there holding my hand, right? And in his Australia Day speech, the Prime Minister of Australia, he goes, look, today we're surrounded by very significant Australians. We have Aboriginal elders, we have community leaders, we have sports heroes. But nothing can ever beat the intro I had to Sam this morning, because when you meet Sam, it's an extraordinary experience, because when you shake his hand, he'll leave his hand in your hand. And in his Australia Day speech, he actually then looked over to me and he goes, and thanks, Sam, I'm still recovering from therapy today. I wanted to give you some actual evidence that this actually did happen. As you can see, there's Adam Gilchrist there in the background. There's the PM's wife, Therese. She's just lost it, right? And literally the Prime Minister of Australia is just handing me back my hand. I think we all have funny moments in our life, and some moments can be hilarious and quite funny. He will never forget that. But then we have other moments that are actually quite life-defining and life-challenging. Recently, I came across a word, and the word is called this, kairos. Kairos is the Greek word for time. The contrast into chronos or chronological time, meaning ordinary or normal time. Kairos time is laden with meaning and choice. So get this, the dictionary meaning of the word kairos is this, is a moment within a moment, a particular moment in where drastic change takes place. A moment within a moment. I think we've all had moments in our life that has actually defined us who we are. I had a moment a few years ago where I had a major car accident. Lost my arm, wrecked my leg. Doctor said I'll never be able to walk ever again. But I also love how moments can actually shift and change things. I used to work for the Australian federal government as a youth futurist for the Department of Education, Employment, Workplace Relations. And as of my kairos moment of losing my arm and wrecking my leg, I then was just simply asked to share my story. I went and shared my story at a local youth stage, and then at a school, and then at another school, and then before you know it, I was then sharing my story all around the world. And one thing we do know about story is stories actually connect us. And Warren put it beautifully as well, just simply how us human beings, we're hardwired through narrative, which is why we love going to the movies, which is why we love reading novels, and ultimately that is the key ingredient in the influence area. One thing that's also really helped to me as well is that whenever we have these kairos moments, these moments of change, and particularly if it is a moment of trauma, we've been told we need to bounce back from that. And so I've written a whole heap of literature in and around. It's not about actually going back to where we've been. It's actually about learning from that crisis, learning from that kairos moment, and more in and around bouncing forward into what we can become. So I want to share with you 3 areas that have really helped me to learn how to bounce forward in my own life. And I also believe in general as well that our own stories is our greatest metaphor. It is. It's the greatest way how we can connect and ultimately influence another person. And that's the very first thing I wanted to share as well. One thing that had really helped me to bounce forward is this, is that I needed to ultimately learn. Actually, it's quite interesting. My doctor, he said, hey, Sam, you've lost your arm, you've wrecked your leg. Initially, they said, I'll never be able to walk ever again. And they said, Sam, unfortunately, now you won't be able to use your hands in order for your career path to take off that way. You're now going to have to now use your intellect. And this is where I realized that ultimately I needed to invest in myself. So I went out there and I went and got the best coaches to help me master communication. And not just that, but then to actually influence another person. And one thing I love about the word influence is it's not just about inspiring or informing them. Ultimately, influencing them is communicating to someone in a way that they're taking action on what they've just heard from you. That's true influence. And so that's certainly something I needed to learn in and around me bouncing forward. The second thing was story showing trumps information. Now, let me share with you something just in and around this, right? So, and in a moment, I'm going to share with you a little bit more about the difference between storytelling and also story showing. But what we do know about information is really, it's important to inform our logic so it makes sense. But ultimately, just because something's made sense doesn't necessarily mean you've influenced them. Let me give you an example. Let's say hypothetically, my wife and I, we go shopping. Let's say we go shopping for a washing machine. We're at Harvey Norman. The salesperson comes over, gives us all the features, all the benefits, and informs us that this washing machine is the right washing machine that we need to buy. And I'm thinking to myself, yep, this is exactly what we need to buy. Let's buy it. But then my wife, she then looks at me and she says, listen to this, ready? She said, Sam, I'm not feeling it. Do you think we're going to buy that washing machine? There's no chance at all. So then I realize it's this. We are in the business of emotion. We can inform someone, but ultimately to truly transform them or even influence them, we need to evoke emotion, which is ultimately there in the power of story. So let me just give you a journey of story that this took me, right? An average storyteller will inform. This is where a lot of education stops. Teachers have been taught how to inform their students, yeah? Whereas a good storyteller will persuade. This is where a lot of salespeople stop. Salespeople have been taught how to persuade their customers and their clients. Whereas a great storyteller will inspire. Now, I love inspiration. I will go to the latest Marvel movie, I'll go and watch a bit of Spider-Man, and I'm actually inspired by that. Man, that's awesome. Inspiration will not necessarily lead to action. Have you felt that? You know, sometimes you inspire, wow, that's really cool, but then when you leave, you go back to your ordinary, everyday, busy life. Which then means there needs to be a shift. The shift started to happen a few years ago. Around 10 years ago, everyone started talking about visual storytelling. We did, didn't we? We said, let's use more images, let's use more video. But the reality is we're still using this word tell. To be quite honest, we're sick and tired of people telling us what to do. We are, aren't we? You know, we're at home and our parents tell us what to do. We're in school, teachers tell us what to do. We're even in the workplace and our boss tells us what to do. Nowadays, there's like a resilience. Don't you tell me what to do. There is, isn't it? Absolutely. And so all of a sudden then we're meant to be storytellers. Let me frame something different to you. If I said, let me tell you something, compared to me saying, let me show you something, it lands totally different to the listener. I've suddenly moved from head to head, and now more heart to heart, which then means an excellent story shower will transform. What's transformation? Transformation means I've been informed, I've been persuaded, I've been inspired, but now I'm ready to take action. This isn't the tipping point, though. The tipping point here is what we like to call transcendence. Now, what transcendence is, it's like an out-of-body experience. It's like a sense of timelessness. When we hear an amazing biography, when we watch a true story, what happens in that moment? We're transcended. We don't even know what the time is, or sometimes we even don't even know where we're sitting because we're so mesmerized. It's taken all of us on that journey. And I believe some of the greatest story showers can transcend our thinking. And I want to finish off with the last point here. And the last one here is this: people follow people. What we now know is that we're living in the profile economy, where we no longer trust brands, companies, logos, organizations. We're now trusting human beings. And there was a significant tipping point in the last few years, where on social media we saw about 50-50 were following brands, companies, logos, media, governments, and the other 50% were following human beings. You know what it is now? It is 92% we're now following human beings, and only 8% we're following government, brands, logos, companies, organisations, media, etc. There's been a significant shift. And my encouragement to you is this: build your profile, whatever that might look like, in your workplace, in your marketplace, because people follow people. If I like you, you're going to influence me. If I don't like you, you're actually then going to, in a way, repel me. How do you become likable? How can you build your own profile? Why? Because people follow people. And today, guys, we actually wanted to give you a bit of a gift when you walk out of the room. And so in your sachets as you walk out, the gift is actually one of my 4 books. These are just a few books here. So basically one there is all around how to bounce forward, more around resilience, well-being. Then you've got this one here, which is obviously people follow people, which is all about this profile economy. And then the other one there is all in and around story showing as well. So we're actually going to give you, everyone in this room as you walk out, one of those books. And so my encouragement to you is actually, take action on it as well and go out there and influence the world. Why? Because the more that we truly believe that our greatest day is ahead of us, the more that you will see that the best is yet to come. Thank you.
Let's give Sam a big round of applause. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed learning something, maybe even been inspired or even transcended throughout this evening. For us here at Speakers Institute Corporate, for us it's important to build connections with people. And as you would have heard throughout tonight, the importance of people and that human connection and that sense of belonging. I come from New Zealand, as if you haven't already noticed by the accent, and we have a wonderful word called whakapapa. And whakapapa talks about belonging. And it's an unbroken chain from our ancestors through to today and into the future. I want you to think about what is the DNA of your company and your culture, and how does it move from the ancestors, the early days of that company, right through and pick up DNA from the clients and employees along the way to where it is now, and even think about what it's going to be like in the future for the generations you will never get to meet. The DNA of your company is all to do with your people. Your culture is so aligned to your DNA. I would even encourage you to remove values from your company and instead instill DNA. What are the behaviors and the ways of working and the things that we're doing together to create what our vision is of the company, rather than one-word values that may mean something, but we don't really know what they are. How about let's look at the way, our attitudes and behaviors and the way we work, and shift to that DNA connected from our ancestors through to our future. As Sam mentioned, we're going to give you a gift on the way out. You can select which book you would like. We're okay for you to do that. You're not just going to be lucky dip. But also you have a brochure there. There's a business card in there if you would like to contact me, if you haven't contacted already. At Speakers Institute Corporate, we have programs for individuals, so professional development for individuals, where anyone can come along. And we actually have one on Monday and Tuesday. There are 1 or 2 spots if someone is really keen. Otherwise, the next one will be in August. And that is on mastering communication and presentation to C-suite. It's 2 days online, 4 hours each day. And so you can come and experience what we're like. For those who would like to have a deeper conversation about some of the problems or gaps that you're finding in your learning development and would like to explore that further and what we could potentially do with you, please reach out. We can have a discussion. And for those that just love what we're doing and want to be a part of us and want to belong to kind of our greater group, you can connect with us on LinkedIn or Facebook as well. Before we finish, I would like to bring all our team up to the front. We are focused on inspiring great leaders. And for me, I'm always looking at for the people that we can have on our team who are inspiring, who want to inspire great leaders and are just passionate about doing that. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's put your hands together and welcome back our whole team to the front. Thank you very much. Cool. Thank you. And thank you very much to all of you. It's been a real pleasure having you here tonight. We've really enjoyed your interactions and great questions. The networking earlier, we've got more networking now. There's still drinks and some food available. You can hang around, talk to our team, ask questions, or you know what? Find someone you don't know and have a conversation. Thank you to all of you. Be inspiring great leaders, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you very much.